in the Turner Park neighborhood.
Right, see if it's already open. That ain't right.
A concerned father checks on his son after several calls go unanswered. They find the son lying on the floor in a back room, stabbed multiple times.
Wake him up! He's gonna wake up! Go ahead and call me.
Yeah. So we're gonna get people out here to get all the evidence.
No!
For homicide detectives, their chance of solving a murder is cut in half if they don't get a lead within the first 48 hours.
Reginald, what do we got?
Sergeant Nathan Schilling will lead the investigation.
Contractor got us at 10 o'clock this morning, walking up the yard. Said he thought it was odd that the victim never came out. He said, I called, no answer. Eventually, he said, at some point, I called Dad. Dad says, I'm on my way. Dad gets here, it's unlocked. They go in, kind of mill through the house. Contractor sees the victim laying on the floor, and, a lot of blood. Quite a bit.
The victim was John Christopher Fender.
57-year-old John Christopher Fender, known as Chris, was born and raised in Tulsa. He worked as an insurance agent and spent much of his spare time working on his home and cars. He leaves behind a large family, including his father and stepmother, sister, and several nieces and nephews.
Victim is in this house.
Okay. They got the warrant.
The team secured a warrant to search Chris's home.
In here is really where everything started, I believe. Mm-hmm.
So, stabbed.
Chris was stabbed more than 70 times.
There's better. There's a lot of blood on the ground. Over here, there's a lot more. It's everywhere. These shoes, I believe, were a part of it.
Oh, wow.
There's blood all over the buns. And there's a knife that's sitting on top of that sink down there.
A second knife and a bloody t-shirt are discovered in the kitchen trash can.
Said the cameras supposed to be in the house?
There are.
Chris has surveillance cameras inside and outside of his home.
Why don't you take it? It's passcode locked.
The system will have to be accessed by the cyber unit.
Thank you so much.
I got the contractor here. He said he's willing to come down if we need to interview him. Dad is very, very emotional, and I understand. You walk in and you find your son like that.
The suspect is Blake McDonald.
Chris's father told responding officers that he believes Chris's ex-boyfriend, Blake, may be responsible for his son's murder.
Blake, he's about 6 foot tall, about 109 pounds.
White male?
Yes, approximately 29 years old. These two have been fighting a lot last year.
This Blake guy had been living there. Supposedly had been kicked out, but he apparently moved back in.
Also, there was a check my well-being out here last night.
Last night, around 9 p.m., an officer was dispatched to Chris's house after a clerk at a marijuana dispensary reported that Blake had come into the store and made threatening statements.
Did he make contact with the victim at 9?
Nope.
Did he knuckle the door?
Tried to go around back to look. Didn't make contact with anybody.
All right. My name is Nathan Schilling. I'm going to be the lead detective on this case.
Schilling speaks with Chris's father.
This is my partner, Detective Warren. He's already spoken to you.
You've been around some and I know it. But I doubt if you've ever seen anybody more pissed than I am right now. Ever.
I can totally understand why. Totally understand why.
I broke 67 bones. I've had knives stuck in me. I've been hit with lightning twice. I've totaled 3 cars, 140 miles an hour, stupid me, when I was young. And brother, all the that I've been through, don't you don't get legal this. You don't begin legal this.
Sorry, man. I'm sorry. You really are.
This isn't how it's supposed to be.
No.
Parents aren't supposed to bury their kids. I'm so sorry, sir.
I wish the hell I'd been there.
I'll say this, and I said it to the other police officers. He's been making me nervous the last 2 weeks.
Chris's neighbor speaks up about Blake.
I never had a conversation with him because he was always a little bit strange. I saw him at the gym a couple weeks ago, and he was talking to himself and being weird and pacing around, wasn't even using any of the equipment. I'll talk to anybody, but I just kept my distance with him.
Then,
Suspect car in 2006 Lincoln sedan, maroon in color.
the team gets the tag number for Blake's car.
It checks back to Blake's name, mother's address, and this is mom's address. Someone else already went out there and made contact.
Officers spoke to members of Blake's family, but no one has seen or heard from him.
You got guys moving around right now, kind of looking for the car.
Yes, sir.
A statewide bolo has been issued for Blake's car.
We got a tag number, which is good. We just got to locate it.
1 hour in,
It's been kind of progressively getting worse over like the last month.
another neighbor approaches Schilling about Blake's behavior.
I watched him just last week. He sat out here just walking back and forth into the carport, just yelling and talking to himself and sitting there having a full-blown argument with nobody. There was something definitely wrong with him. I don't know exactly what it was, but he definitely needs some help.
All right. So I think my partner already said you'd be willing to go downtown and visit with us.
Yeah,
Chris's contractor agrees to be interviewed at headquarters.
we can go together if you want. You come with me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Chris's father also agrees to talk downtown.
We'll talk to you each individually and get your story.
I don't have a story, and I know who done it, and you know who done it.
Dad immediately thought that Blake was the person that did this, so we're leaning towards that. We don't necessarily know yet. We'll find out. We're gonna find Blake.
Blake Matthew McDonald.
29-year-old Blake McDonald, an aspiring actor from Tulsa, works the night shift at a home improvement store. He has no prior convictions.
It would appear that, there's really no other suspect other than his significant other at this point. We still have to dot our I's and cross our T's because we don't want to jeopardize anything, so we're gonna holler at the victim's dad and a contractor that was working in the yard, try to get a little bit more of the backstory. We'll go get this rolling.
I know we spoke a little bit out there, and we got a kind of summary of what you saw and what happened today.
Detective Reggie Warren starts with Chris's contractor.
You were over the house today doing some landscaping, concrete work and stuff like that. How long have you known the victim?
10 years, maybe longer than that.
What kind of guy would you describe him as?
Good person, kind person, very witty. You know, he had a real good sense of humor about him. A great guy.
Okay. Today you got to the house, and what time did you get there?
I got there this morning around 10 o'clock, and I just got my tools out and went to work. Chris had not been out of his house all day, so I called him.
Okay, you didn't get any answers.
I didn't get any answers, and then I done some more work, and I called him again. Got no answer. So then I called his dad, and I said, hey, have you heard from Chris? I can't get a hold of him. I said, his cars are here, but I hadn't seen him all day. He said, that's strange, something's wrong. I'll be there and we'll check on him. He was about to put the key in the door, and I said, hey, why don't you try that door and see if it's locked first? And when he opened it up, something told me for sure then something's not right, because Chris does not leave his door unlocked even when he's in the house. So then I hollered for Chris, didn't get no response, and I turned the corner to go into the office, and on the door frame there was just covered in blood. I went on around, and I noticed he's laying there on his back, and that's when I ran out of the house, and I said, I'm going to call an ambulance.
So just kind of describe the relationship between Chris and Blake.
I guess the word would be tumultuous. They were in a relationship. I know they were having lots of arguments about different things. Chris had kicked Blake out for drinking and drugging and cheating on him. I feel like probably if anybody was to do it, it would be Blake. I didn't like Blake. He's just strange. Always pacing, talking to himself, very disturbing.
That's not normal. I really appreciate you coming tonight.
Yeah. I feel for his dad. His dad's never going to be the same.
I feel for his dad as well. I feel for all you guys.
In the next room,
I knew Chris was dead. I knew it.
Schilling speaks with Chris's father.
Yeah. Just sometimes you just know when something's not right.
I knew Blake was going to kill him. But I always thought Chris could protect himself. Chris was a father figure to him.
So is Blake considerably younger than Chris?
Yes. 30-year difference. We tried to help him. We tried to guide him. Blake had no friends, no relationship with a father figure. Very little relationship with his mother. But he always had these... He talked crazy in his head.
Chris ever expressed any concerns about his behavior to you?
Yeah. He told me he's constantly pacing, talking to himself. He said he needs to get some mental help. Chris is always talking to the guy he's wanting to help him. He's hoping that he can talk to him and he'll listen and kind of mentally straighten himself out. He took on a project, Chris did, if you will. He's got a good heart.
How long have Chris and Blake known each other?
Well, it'd have to be, he was 19.
Blake was 19?
Yes.
He says Chris met Blake 10 years ago.
And I don't know how they met.
So there's no one else that lives there besides Chris and Blake?
Blake, yes, that's sometimes.
Blake's there sometimes he's gone?
Chris has kicked him out, okay? He had to call his clothes in the car, he's been gone.
When was this?
He says Chris asked Blake to move out 3 or 4 months ago.
So at some point he let him back in though, because it sounded like Blake's been around the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, he's been there off and on. He was sleeping in his car. Chris wouldn't let him in.
Are you aware if either of them ever messed around with any kind of drugs?
Yeah, Blake all the time, not Chris ever.
Okay. I mean, obviously our goal is to go find Blake at this point, and I appreciate you coming down here and visiting with me.
Four hours in,
Talking to officers at the scene, They told me that a call had come in last night from the dispensary here south downtown. Blake had been in there, and the worker called in at like 9 and said that he had made some homicidal and suicidal statements. It rattled her. Pablo made contact with her, got her to come downtown and talk to us. Hello.
Hi.
I'm going on a limb and say that one of my partners talked to you about what this was about. Mm-hmm. Okay. Tell me what happened to the best of your recollection, all right?
Okay. He came into the dispensary. He was moving like very erratically. Like he's been like that the past couple of times he's been in the store. Like I recognized him when I pulled his name out. He sketches me out a little bit. He said he needed dime cards, and then he started talking about how he was going to go kill someone. And he said at one point he was going to axe someone. He said something like, "You're going to see this on the news tomorrow." And when I was like, I have to call police. It took me like 20 minutes to make the call because we were busy with other people.
Did it sound like he was going to go and do something to more than one person?
No, because he made it sound like he was gonna hurt himself too. Like he was gonna either kill himself or he was gonna die somehow. Like, I'm gonna die too, or I wanna die tonight.
Okay. Well, thank you for calling. I know this has to be hard for you. It's not an everyday occurrence. All right, we'll get you out of here. That girl's in shock.
She was scared to death. She is. She feels real bad. Her boss is like, "I can get you the video."
Detective Pablo Zuniga pulls up surveillance video he collected from the dispensary.
That's him getting there. He's running in.
Blake arrives at 8:22 p.m.
So he's walking. He's incredibly agitated.
All kinds of movements everywhere.
This isn't sped up or anything. This is his real speed.
He's whacked out.
The clerk is saying that he's very agitated and angry and just making statements about wanting to hurt people with an axe. He mentioned that he was also going to die or kill himself. He does like a double gun move to his head right there. Right here, he starts making stabbing motions to his own neck.
Poor girl's like, I just want to get you out of here.
Those are the shoes that's in the house with the blood on.
That's pretty good.
And here he's premeditating. I'm going to go.
Oh, yeah.
This might be one of the most premeditated murders I've had.
That's it.
Blake leaves the dispensary at 8:27 p.m.
And then his vehicle hits flop going westbound on Admiral Harbor right at 2103.
At 9:03 p.m., 36 minutes after Blake left the dispensary, his car was picked up by license plate cameras driving away from Chris's house.
I wonder if he went home and then he killed him, and then he fled the scene. The employee from the dispensary called in at 20:52. According to her, it was about a 20-minute time lapse. He gave his address. Officers went by the house. Body cam footage from yesterday.
McNeil pulls up body cam from the officer sent to check on Blake.
This officer's checking the perimeter, trying to get in contact with somebody at the house, and nobody's answering the door. I'm thinking our victim's in the house dead already. But this officer doesn't know. I mean, there's no reason for him to think anything's going on in the house. He walked to each side of the house, looked over the fence.
Call police.
He's not mobile. I mean, there's no reason for him to do anything more. He got there right at 2101, close to 2102, and his vehicle's hitting the flock down the street at 2103. So I think that's when he's fleeing the scene.
The officer arrived at the house 1 minute after license plate cameras captured Blake's car leaving the scene.
So he barely missed him.
Barely missed him. And so, is it possible it could have happened in that's a small window?
I think it had to happen in that window. If he's got the shoes on at the dispensary and they're clean, he's not covered in blood.
I think his phone data will tell the tale.
Yeah.
Just waiting on AT&T.
McNeil sent a warrant to Blake's phone company requesting his location records.
We should hopefully get some data, hopefully by tomorrow.
Nice.
Hopefully. We'll see.
7 hours in.
The suspect called in 3:59 a.m. He said that his roommate just tried to stab him.
Dispatch informs the team that Blake called 911 8 hours after the murder from near Stringtown, Oklahoma.
It sounds like what, an hour and a half, 2 hours?
2.5 hours.
2 hours?
I looked it up.
Stringtown is about 125 miles south of Tulsa.
Tulsa police.
Me and my boyfriend got in some sort of altercation. Like, he tried stabbing me. I drove away to, get some fresh air. I was in shock.
What is your name?
Blake McDonald. Like, I just don't know what happened to him. He was okay when I left him.
What location are you at? I need to send an officer to speak with you and take the report.
I'm in between, Tulsa and Stringtown right now.
Okay. So do you plan on coming back to Tulsa?
I don't have a car. I hit a deer. I'm on the side of the highway walking to Stringtown.
All right, Blake, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this in and see if an officer or a supervisor will give you a call.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
A supervisor called Blake, but he didn't answer.
I wonder if somebody may have came in contact with that car.
I already called them.
Zuniga reached out to the local sheriff's department and asked them to look for Blake's car.
Their assistant chief called back and said, if we run into the car, we'll give you a call back. But their dispatch said, according to their records, they had nobody out asking for help for hitting a deer or anything last night.
He called the police last night and said that his boyfriend tried to stab him. To me, I feel like the call is self-serving. I would argue that, he just called to try to give himself some sort of self-defense claim.
8 hours in, the team still has no leads on Blake's whereabouts.
I would be concerned for the safety of others at this point. Talking to witnesses, he's got some abnormal behaviors. Sometimes there's medical issues for that, and other times it's drug-induced. And then sometimes, which is probably more common than not, a combination of the two. There's a lot of struggles with both of those in society, and when someone that has some mental health issues exacerbates it with drug use, then, it's kind of a tempest.
One hour later.
So Margot, doing what Margot does, she did a offline search on Blake and found out that a deputy down outside of Kiowa ran Blake.
Crime analyst Margot Hain-Bell discovers that around midnight last night, a deputy found Blake's car on the side of the road in Pittsburgh County, Oklahoma.
So that's probably 100 miles south of here. The deputy said, yeah, the car was disabled, parked on the side of the road. They found him walking down the highway with a laceration to his face. Blake says he hit a deer. The deputy gave him a ride to Kiowa and dropped him off at a convenience store.
Blake got a ride from the deputy 4 hours before he called 911 from Stringtown to report that his boyfriend had tried to stab him.
Stringtown's probably another 30 miles down the highway. You know, if Blake had really been assaulted, the first opportunity he comes in contact with law enforcement, you know, wouldn't you think it might be something important to tell them? But the deputy said when he asked Blake what happened to his face, Blake said the deer kicked him in the face. So only later to decide that maybe it's in my best interest to try to get ahead of this and at least put a self-defense story up. So I think it's pretty clear that it's just trying to cover his tracks when he makes that phone call.
Then.
So according to phone stuff, he's somewhere in Texas.
Blake's phone location records finally come in.
Somewhere at Dallas-Fort Worth airport area, somewhere in there. That was at 9:02 p.m.
Blake's phone was last picked up by cell towers near Dallas 4 hours ago.
They're hoping this dude didn't fly to Afghanistan. We called Dallas-Fort Worth Police Department, the airport police, and they're checking their terminals. But I think there's hotels around the terminals.
This place is so huge. There's a lot of different areas he could go, a lot of ground to cover. So Sergeant Stiles is going to reach out to some federal agents and see if they can't help us and figure out where he went.
Okay. Let me get on that and I'll get some info for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
The unfortunate part is he might have already hopped on the flight.
The next morning.
All right, thank you so much, sir.
Of course.
Bye. Pretty important news. We have some contacts down at with the FBI, and they were able to check the flight itineraries for my suspect, and it would appear he is on a flight currently from Dallas to JFK and has a connecting flight onto Paris. Obviously, we want to snatch him before he leaves the country.
Blake's flight is due to land at JFK Airport in New York in 2 hours.
I'm gonna try to get this warrant knocked out really quick so that when they land, they'll board the plane and take him into custody.
1 hour later.
So, got a warrant issued, $5 million bond since he was trying to flee the country.
Oh, mercy. What? That's what I'm talking about.
Hopefully the Port Authority up in New York will be able to pick him up as soon as he lands, and we're gonna go talk to the family. Hopefully, while we're talking to him, we'll get him in custody.
Come on in. Welcome.
Schilling and Warren update Chris's family.
As soon as we hear something, we'll let y'all know.
How do you get him out? Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As Schilling and Warren leave Chris's family. 1,400 miles away at JFK Airport, Blake's plane has just landed.
Sorry, Blake. How are you? You on you? Yes. I see you, I think. Yeah. Put all your stuff right there. All the stuff? Yep. You right there, right here. Hands right back.
Port Authority police officers take Blake into custody. Back in Tulsa.
He's in custody. They're emailing me what they have. All right, let me just run in there and tell them real quick. See, I just had to try to leave. He's in custody.
He got him.
They got him up there. They got him on the plane. I don't know the story yet, but we'll hear it.
We got some work to do. We'll talk to you guys.
afternoon.
There's quite a bit of evidence that he had with him, his clothing he was wearing, and he had 2 backpacks of stuff.
Blake will be held in New York until he can be extradited back to Tulsa.
We may try to go up there and take an opportunity to interview him, but eventually he will be brought back to Tulsa and have to answer for what he's done.
With just over 24 hours left in the first 48, the team must now wait to hear Blake's side of the story. Eight days later.
Well, we just landed in New York City, so me and Pablo, this is the first for us.
Schilling and Zuniga arrive in New York City, both for the first time.
Sergeant Schilling's going to talk to the suspect tomorrow.
I'd like to just kind of touch base with him, let him know, that we are investigating it. There's obviously 2 sides to every story, and right now, we don't really have either side. We just have the physical evidence to it. He got booked into Queens Central Booking, and then after that, he ended up getting transferred to Rikers Island. You hear about it in movies, probably never thought you were going to be getting to go there. It's all downhill from here, Pablo. You peaked. You peaked way too early.
Yeah.
So this is my first time in New York City, and it's one of those places I think is kind of like a bucket list place for a lot of people. Detective White, who's our local tour guide, he gave me enough to do to fill up a week or 2, but we don't have that much time, so if we get the opportunity, I'd love to see the World Trade Center. It's kind of the one thing that's really on my list.
2 hours later, while they wait to talk to Blake.
Older people talk about where they were like when JFK was assassinated or Elvis Presley died, but for me, one of the biggest significant events was 9/11. I was actually in training, driving around Tulsa with a senior police officer, and all this stuff's going on in New York, and it's just, now, gosh, 23 years later, I'm getting to come here and kind of see it for the first time. I'll do a hot dog.
I want a hot dog. 1 hot dog, 2. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Man, it's good.
There's 5 buildings I can see right now that are all bigger than any building we have in Tulsa. And that's just this side of the street. That's wild.
So we're gonna go over to Rikers at 11 and holler at Blake. It's a place that's, I don't know, a bit intimidating. It's like, it's not Alcatraz, but if you talk about jails that people have heard of,
yep,
that's one of them.
Yeah.
The next morning.
So we're on our way to Rikers now, and we're going to go meet with Blake and let him know that we're interested in his side of the story, and if he decides to talk to us, great. If not, we'll, go with what we have. Nathan Schilling. Nice to meet you as well.
NYPD will escort Schilling and Zuniga across the bridge to Rikers Island.
Hey, Blake. I am Sergeant Nathan Schilling, Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is my partner, Pablo Zuniga.
We just wanted to let you know that we are interested in what you have to say, and I'd love to hear your side of the story. Lawyer. Okay. Good. Do you have any questions for me about anything at this point? I don't know. All right.
It's a little anticlimactic. He immediately said, I want my attorney. But he starts pointing at his face, at the cuts on his face. So he's trying to tell me something without telling me something, but ultimately, he chose not to tell us. Unfortunately for him, there's a mountain of evidence against him. So whether he talks or not, it's going to be a hard case to beat.
2 hours later,
Set everything up in the conference room.
All right.
Schilling and Zuniga meet with Port Authority Detective Michael McDaniels to collect Blake's belongings.
Were you actually on the plane when he got arrested, or?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Did you think he was surprised or shocked, or?
I wouldn't say he was really surprised. He kept his head down, didn't really talk. He was very cooperative. At one point, I don't remember the exact wording, but somehow he uttered, "He stabbed me." There was another interaction with him when we were in the cells. He said, "Detective, I have a question." I said, "Sure." He said, "Did he die?" I hear guys saying, "My warrant's for murder. Did he die?" I said, "All I can tell you is that you have a warrant for murder out of Tulsa, Oklahoma." He said, "Okay." So this is the bags. Little heavy. This is the clothing. We were asked not to go through it, so we didn't even open it.
Okay, excellent.
Blake's luggage will be searched for possible evidence back in Tulsa after the team has secured a warrant.
I think that's everything.
Thanks so much.
No problem.
This morning was not quite what we hoped for, but this was a good trip. I'm glad we came to New York. It's pretty spectacular, great place to visit, but there's no place like home.
Later,
Blake got brought back on Thursday, so he is now at the Tulsa County Jail. Was able to get a search warrant for the bags that Blake had with him on his flight. In the check bag, ended up finding a kind of a military style, like K-bar knife. I don't see any blood on it. I don't know. There's nothing that gives me reason to believe that this was involved in it. And also found a tomahawk-style axe. So, you know, again, it doesn't look like it was involved in the actual incident, but the fact that the witness from the dispensary said that he said he was going to go axe somebody, it could play a role in the investigation. I have some DVR footage I've also been able to review.
The cyber crimes unit was able to access Chris's surveillance system and send Schilling several clips of Blake inside the house at the time of the murder.
So he pulls into the driveway.
12 minutes after leaving the marijuana dispensary, Blake arrives at Chris's home.
For whatever reason, it doesn't pick up the initial him walking in the house.
This is literally 2 minutes after he pulled into the driveway.
It would appear that he's already had an altercation with the victim. And
he ended up back outside somehow.
He's coming back in the front door, and he's already bloody. Then he pulls the knife out and goes back to where our victim was found. You can see him over here a little bit. It's almost like he's talking to him.
It would appear that Blake took a shower after.
You know, we definitely have self-defense cases. You know, you have people get into a fight and someone pulls out a knife and stabs someone once, twice, 3 times in quick succession to get away, and then that person dies. You know, that's a little bit understandable, but to stab someone at least 71 times, numerous stab wounds to the chest, to the back of the head, that's not consistent with a self-defense claim. I think, you know, this case, there's no question that Blake was going to kill Chris. He's saying that before it happens. So he has lost pretty much any self-defense claim. He's going over there with the intent to stab him. And I think the evidence would support that.
8 months after Chris was killed, his family gathers to remember him.
We had some good times with Uncle Chris. We miss him, don't we?
Yes, we do.
He was funny, wasn't he?
Yes.
Chris was just a real kidder. He loved to joke, he loved to laugh. He worked on his cars. He kept an immaculate yard.
He was always meticulous about everything, whether it was artwork or decorating. He always liked to improve things.
He just had a soft spot, too, a soft heart. And it's just unfortunate, you know, that he got hooked up with Blake.
He just wanted to use Chris. Chris was loving. I think at the beginning it was a boyfriend relationship, but later on, I think it became, I'm trying to nurture him. He came from a bad home, you know, and I can make it better kind of thing, and I can help him. And, you know, for a long time, he just took advantage of my brother. I mean, we all worried Blake would do something.
I kept trying to get Chris to kick him out. And Chris kept telling me, he says he'll kill himself. And I said, that's not your problem. Your problem is letting him stay there. You need to get him out of that house.
Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't protect him. I'm sorry I couldn't change things for him. It's just very sad. And he didn't deserve, nobody would deserve that, but my brother didn't deserve it from just trying to help somebody. I wish we could turn back time, but you can't. I just don't want him to be forgotten. I don't want my brother to be forgotten.
Book 1. Shadows on the Park Bench. The late summer darkness over Gwinnett County, Georgia, possessed a heavy, suffocating stillness. In a quiet public park tucked within the quiet neighborhood of North Lake, the midnight air was shattered by a sharp, rhythmic succession of gunshots. Moments later, the frantic sound of a young woman's voice tore through the quiet lines of the local emergency 911 dispatch center. The caller, a young woman named Kayla, was hyperventilating, her voice trembling with raw panic as she tried to articulate the scene unfolding before her eyes. She explained to the operator that she had been sleeping in the back seat of a parked vehicle when the thunderous crack of firearms jolted her awake. Outside her window, the world had descended into chaos. Her boyfriend and his closest friend lay motionless near a wooden picnic table. When the emergency operator asked who had fired the shots, Kayla could only stammer through her tears, explaining that her boyfriend and his friend were on the ground, barely making noise, no longer breathing normally. 2 young black men had been spotted sprinting away from the picnic area, vanishing into the dense tree that separated the public park from the adjacent residential neighborhood. Within minutes, the silent park was filled with the flashing red and blue lights of patrol cruisers. Officers poured into the area, establishing a wide perimeter. While calling for an immediate canine unit, a police service dog was brought to the scene, lowered to the damp grass, and given the command to track. The dog immediately picked up a strong human scent trail leading up a dirt path through the woods, tracking past the thick brush toward a nearby residential street. The handler called out over the radio, relaying to command that the canine was leading officers directly to the rear of a yellow house situated on a street named Norris Lane, roughly a quarter of a mile from the park. But as the dog reached the back fence of the residence, its enthusiasm waned. The canine alerted on the back boundary of the property and could track no further. Patrol officers approached the house, noticing a gate left swinging wide open. When officers knocked firmly on the front door, a light inside the home abruptly clicked off. Repeated calls for the occupants to come to the door yielded only silence. Without sufficient probable cause to breach the residence, officers established a fixed post outside, marking the address as a location of intense investigative interest. Back at the picnic bench, the primary homicide investigators assigned to the case arrived to take command of the scene, led Detective Pearson alongside Detective O'Reina and Investigator Stevens stepped past the yellow police tape to assess the devastation. The crime scene presented a tragic sight. 2 young men lay dead near the wooden picnic table. The first victim was identified as 19-year-old Aiden Reynolds, a native of Cartersville, Georgia. Aiden was an aspiring musician who worked as a local delivery driver, leaving behind a heartbroken mother, father, and younger sister. The second victim was 17-year-old John Pendrick, Aiden's inseparable best friend. Born in Fullerika, Georgia, John had recently secured a job as an oil technician. He was an avid motorcyclist, camper, and skateboarder who left behind his mother, stepfather, and 3 siblings. Detective Pearson carefully examined the physical positioning of the bodies. John had sustained devastating wounds to his arm, chest, back, and torso. His body collapsed against the wooden frame of the table as though he had been struck down mid-sentence. Aiden lay a short distance away, shot once in the chest, once beneath his arm, and 3 times in the back, indicating he had attempted to flee the sudden barrage of violence. Neither young man had seen the attack coming. The crime scene investigation unit began systematically marking physical evidence around the table. 13 spent 9mm shell casings were recovered, clustered tightly within a narrow radius. The tight grouping suggested a single shooter operating with high discipline, emptying a single standard magazine in rapid succession. Lying on the ground near the victims were their respective cellular phones, both displaying significant exterior damage. Officers immediately placed the devices into signal-blocking bags to prevent any remote wiping of digital data. Additionally, tucked inside the waistband of John's trousers, investigators made a sobering discovery: realistic-looking plastic airsoft replica gun. Detective Pearson walked over to the patrol vehicle where Kayla was seated, visibly traumatized. Pearson introduced himself and Detective O'Reina, offering sincere condolences before asking her to recount the events of the evening. Kayla explained that Aiden and John had traveled to the park that night to conduct a narcotics transaction, intending to sell $400 worth of marijuana. When asked for the identity of the buyer, Kayla insisted there was no name exchanged. She explained that Aiden had arranged the meeting entirely. Through the social media platform Instagram, the buyer had specified this particular park as the location for the exchange. Kayla recalled falling asleep in the car shortly after their arrival, only to be awakened by the sound of gunfire. Looking out the window, she glimpsed two figures dressed entirely in black running into the darkness. Detective Pearson noted the inherent contradiction in her statement. The suspects had chosen a secluded park that was unknown to outsiders unless they lived in the immediate vicinity. It seemed far too deliberate to be a mere coincidence. Pearson gently probed whether Kayla was withholding any details, urging her to share anything that might help track down the killers. Kayla insisted she had shared everything she knew. Returning to the perimeter near Norris Lane, Pearson conferenced with patrol officers regarding the yellow house where the canine track had ended. The officers explained that the occupants had turned off their lights and refused to answer the door. Pearson recognized that while the canine's path was intriguing, it did not yet provide legal probable cause to secure a search warrant for the residence. However, patrol officers located a neighboring home equipped with an exterior security camera pointed directly at the park's access road. Unfortunately, the homeowner's internet service was temporarily down, preventing them from pulling the recorded video off the cloud server immediately. Detectives would have to wait until connectivity was restored. Back at headquarters, the digital forensics unit began attempting to extract data from the victims' recovered cellular phones. John's device had a severely damaged charging port, but technicians successfully bypassed the hardware failure to extract his records. Aiden's phone, however, presented a far greater hurdle. The physical damage prevented an immediate download, yielding only corrupted, partial call logs. Forensic specialists informed Pearson that the device would require delicate physical repair before any data could be retrieved. While reviewing the extracted messages from John's phone, Pearson uncovered a crucial piece of evidence. Approximately 1 hour before the shooting, Aiden had sent a text message to John asking, "What if I was thinking about robbing him?" This single text message transformed the entire theory of the case. It revealed that Aiden had not merely intended to sell marijuana, he had been contemplating taking the buyer's money by force. If Aiden had attempted a robbery, the individuals on the receiving end had retaliated with lethal violence. It also suggested that Kayla's initial narrative had left out critical context. Detective Pearson brought Kayla back in for a second, more detailed interview. Pearson laid out the reality of the situation, emphasizing that she was their primary witness and that total honesty was imperative. Confronted with the evolving picture, Kayla conceded that Aiden had indeed initiated the plan, calling John to say he had a profitable opportunity. She then volunteered a new piece of information. Several months prior, Aiden had allegedly taken $90 from a local girl during a botched marijuana sale, taking her money without delivering the product. Kayla provided the girl's neighborhood nickname and indicated that she resided on Norris Lane. Pearson immediately drove back to Norris Lane to follow up on this potential line of retaliation. Coincidentally, the address given for the girl was located just down the street from the yellow house where the canine unit had alerted. Upon arriving at the residence, Pearson and investigator Stevens spoke with a young woman on the front porch. When asked about the alleged $90 robbery, the young woman adamantly denied ever being ripped off by Aiden. She expressed shock at his death and insisted that neither she nor anyone in her social circle had any involvement in the violence. She reiterated that while Aiden had a reputation among some neighborhood youth for running off with money, she bore him no ill will. Detectives found themselves back at square one, waiting on technical breakthroughs. 4 days after the double homicide, internet service was finally restored to the neighbor's security system, allowing detectives to review the recorded video footage. The footage provided a clear timeline of the final moments of Aiden and John's lives. At 12:04 in the morning, Aiden's vehicle was captured pulling into the park's parking lot. At 12:13 in the morning, the vehicle's headlights flashed twice, indicating the driver was signaling someone in the dark. At 12:25 in the morning, Aiden and John were seen stepping out of the vehicle and walking toward the wooden picnic table. John was wearing a backpack on his shoulders, a backpack that was missing from his body when police arrived. The footage also picked up a shadowy figure lurking near the edge of the park, waiting in the shadows. It was the last known video of the two young men alive. 13 days after the murder, the forensic laboratory successfully repaired Aiden's damaged phone and extracted its internal storage. Detective Pearson sat at his desk, carefully scrolling through the retrieved text logs and social media applications. There, in the Instagram application, was the complete transcript of the conversation leading up to the double homicide. Aiden had been communicating with an account under the user handle popshotsej_. The two had negotiated the purchase of 56 grams of marijuana for $400. At 11:48 in the evening, the user operating the Pop Shots EJ account instructed Aiden to meet at the park. At 12:05 in the morning, Aiden sent a message stating he had arrived. At 12:25 in the morning, the exact moment captured on the neighbor's security video when the victims walked toward the bench, Pop Shots EJ sent a one-word message here. The digital timeline matched the physical video evidence with mathematical precision. The individual operating the Pop Shots EJ account was undeniably one of the perpetrators present at the picnic table. Pearson pulled up the profile associated with Pop Shots EJ_, finding a photograph of a young male. However, the profile had been deleted shortly after the night of the shooting. Recognizing that North Lake was a tight-knit community where local youth frequently crossed paths, Pearson returned to Norris Lane to show the profile photograph to the young woman he had interviewed earlier. Upon seeing the photograph, the young woman's posture changed instantly. Her eyes widened in recognition. She identified the individual as EJ, though she did not know his legal name. She recalled that she and a friend had met E.J. Weeks earlier at Norris Lake, a community beach near the park. She explained that E.J. had tried to get her friend's phone number, but her friend had given him her Instagram handle instead. She added that her friend had recently styled E.J.'s hair at his residence. Detectives immediately drove to the friend's residence down the street.
Pearson
Gently interviewed the teenage girl, who confirmed she knew E.J. and had done his hair just 2 weeks prior to the murder. Detective Pearson asked if she could point out the house where she had styled his hair. Investigators placed the young woman in the back of an unmarked police vehicle and took a slow drive through the neighborhood. As they turned down the familiar corridor of Norris Lane, the young woman pointed out a specific property, a yellow house surrounded by a wooden fence. It was the exact yellow house where the police canine had lost the track on the night of the murder, the same house where the lights had been hastily switched off when patrol officers knocked. The convergence of evidence was undeniable. The canine tracking, the security footage, the digital records, and the eyewitness identification all pointed directly to the yellow house on Norris Lane. To determine E.J.'s true identity, Pearson contacted the school resource officer assigned to the local alternative academic centers, Give East and Give West, which cater to youth in the area. Pearson provided the handle pop shots E.J. underscore and the physical description. Within hours, the resource officer called back with a definitive match.
The student known as E.J. was
16-year-old Laquan Leroy Dempsey. While Pearson had established that the Pop Shots E.J. account belonged to Laquan Dempsey, an arrest warrant for felony murder required absolute proof that Laquan himself was holding the phone and present at the park at the precise moment of the shooting. Pearson secured a search warrant for the yellow house on Norris Lane, backed by a tactical entry team. Officers executed the search warrant, securing the residence. Inside, detectives searched for the missing 9mm handgun and John's stolen backpack, but neither item was immediately recovered. Pearson conducted an on-scene interview with a resident of the home who confirmed that 16-year-old Laquan Dempsey frequently stayed at the house as a friend of her brother. Pearson pulled the resident aside to speak in the shade of the driveway. Confronted with the weight of the investigation, the resident revealed a critical detail. Back in late June, Laquan Dempsey had claimed he was robbed of marijuana by a young white male. Pearson recognized the motive instantly. Aiden's death was not merely a robbery gone wrong. It was a calculated, retaliatory trap stemming from an earlier conflict. 2 days later, an attorney representing the residents of the Yellow House contacted Pearson to inquire about the scope of the investigation. Meanwhile, Pearson reached out to Laquan Dempsey's grandmother, arranging for Laquan to come to police headquarters voluntarily for an interview accompanied by family. Sitting in the interview room, 16-year-old Laquan Dempsey appeared nervous. Pearson laid out the facts of the case, explaining that forensic technicians had recovered the complete Instagram interaction between the Pop Shots EJ account and Aiden Reynolds. Laquan immediately offered a defense. He claimed that he shared the Pop Shots EJ Instagram account with several friends, including the resident of the Yellow House. He insisted that 2 days before the shooting, his friend had taken his phone, promising to give him a replacement device because Laquan's original phone had a cracked screen. Laquan asserted that he was entirely unaware of how his account was being used on the night of the murder. He claimed his friend was trying to pressure him into a local street gang and that the friend had taken his phone to arrange the meeting at the park without his participation.
Laquan
claimed his friend later admitted to going down to the park, negotiating with the victims and opening fire after gunshots were exchanged, stealing the backpack before fleeing back to the Yellow House. Pearson listened carefully, noting the intricate nature of Laquan's story.
While
it was plausible that an older gang figure could intimidate a 16-year-old, Pearson knew that digital evidence provided an objective truth that verbal stories could not alter. Following the interview, Pearson obtained the detailed call records and cellular tower ping data for Laquan's personal phone number. When Pearson analyzed the tower data, Laquan's story completely collapsed. The cell tower logs revealed that during the exact time frame Laquan claimed his phone was in his friend's possession, the phone was repeatedly placing outgoing calls to Laquan's grandmother. Furthermore, the tower pings placed the device squarely in the North Lake neighborhood adjacent to the park at 12:25 in the morning on the night of the double homicide, placing outgoing calls just hours before and after the murders. The friend would have had no reason to maintain continuous voice contact with Laquan's grandmother. The data proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that Laquan Dempsey was in personal possession of his phone, operating his account, and physically present in North Lake when Aiden Reynolds and John Pendrick were executed. Pearson attempted to schedule a follow-up interview to confront Laquan with the cell tower records, but Laquan's family retained formal legal counsel, declining further questioning. With overwhelming circumstantial, digital, and geographical evidence establishing Laquan's direct involvement in the trap and subsequent double execution, Pearson secured formal arrest warrants charging 16-year-old Laquan Leroy Dempsey with 2 counts of felony murder. 5 days later, tactical officers executed the arrest warrant at Laquan's grandmother's residence, taking the teenager into custody without incident. 3 years after the tragic night in the park, the mothers of Aiden Reynolds and John Pendrick gathered together to remember their sons, wearing commemorative shirts bearing the faces of the 2 best friends. The mothers reflected on the enduring bond their sons shared in life and death. Though the grief remained a permanent fixture in their lives, they drew strength from one another, connected by a shared history and an unwavering commitment to honor the memory of 2 young men whose lives were tragically cut short on a summer night in North Lake. Book 2, Echoes Beneath the Ash. In the late afternoon hours on the west side of Tulsa, Oklahoma, a quiet neighborhood was disrupted by an alarming discovery. A local resident searching along a rear property line for her lost cat's collar stumbled upon something horrifying in the backyard of a ruined residential lot on South 54th. West Goldman Avenue, tucked beneath the charred, collapsed structural beams of a detached garage that had burned down months earlier were human skeletal remains. The witness immediately dialed 911. Patrol officers dispatched to the scene navigated past the overgrown vegetation to the perimeter of the collapsed outbuilding. Peering into the ash-stained debris, an officer confirmed the presence of a human jawbone protruding from beneath heavy wooden joists. Recognizing the grave nature of the discovery, patrol officers secured the entire lot with crime scene tape and requested immediate response from the Tulsa Police Department Homicide Division. Led Detective Mark Kennedy, accompanied by Detective Ward and crime scene Detective Ross Hall, arrived on scene as daylight began to fade. The property featured a main house that appeared standing, paired with a heavily scorched rear garage that had been reduced to a heap of blackened rubble. Fire department records revealed that a major structural fire had occurred at the address 5 months earlier in mid-September. At the time of the blaze, firefighters had suppressed the inferno, but the garage was so densely packed with accumulated household property and storage debris that the thermal destruction went unexamined deep within the pile. Forensic anthropologist Dr. Angela Berg was called to the scene to conduct an expert preliminary analysis of the remains. Navigating the delicate structure, Dr. Berg established that the skeleton was lying positioned beneath heavy support beams. She noted visible trauma to the cranium, pointing out distinct fracture lines consistent with severe blunt force or high-velocity impact, alongside extensive thermal damage caused by the surrounding fire. Dr. Berg advised detectives that the positioning of the body appeared highly intentional, as if it had been placed or hidden beneath the clutter prior to or during the fire. Due to the fragility of the burned bone fragments and incoming darkness, Dr. Berg scheduled a full scientific excavation for the following morning. Detectives quickly turned their attention to establishing ownership of the property. County records identified the homeowner, who lived in the main residence. The witness who discovered the remains noted that when she had requested permission from the homeowner to look for her cat in his yard earlier that afternoon, the man had granted permission but abruptly boarded a vehicle and departed the property moments later. Detective Ross Hall placed a phone call to the homeowner's mobile number. When Hall asked if he could return to the house to speak with investigators, the homeowner claimed he had suddenly traveled out of state and could not meet. Detectives found his evasive behavior highly suspicious. Detective Kennedy contacted the homeowner directly via telephone, recording the conversation. Kennedy explained that skeletal remains had been discovered in his rear garage and requested a face-to-face meeting. The homeowner expressed extreme reluctance, stating he was uncomfortable meeting at police headquarters because he felt it gave law enforcement a home field advantage. When Kennedy formally pressed him about the remains, the homeowner spontaneously asked if the body could belong to a man named Steve Wilkins. The homeowner claimed that Steve Wilkins had been residing inside the detached garage apartment up until the night of the fire in September, and that he had not seen Steve since the blaze. Kennedy urged him to meet to discuss Wilkins, and the homeowner eventually agreed to accept a text message with an alternative meeting address. Detective Kennedy immediately searched law enforcement databases for any missing person reports filed under the name of Steve Wilkins. Surprisingly, no missing person reports had ever been lodged. Further background checks revealed that 55-year-old Steve Wilkins was a longtime Tulsa resident. Born in California, Steve was the son of a military service member and had spent his youth living in Germany, Georgia, and Oklahoma before settling in Tulsa over 20 years ago. A former commercial baker and poet, Steve was known to volunteer his time at local community support networks like Neighbors Along the Line. He was a father of 4 children and had 3 siblings, but after separating from his wife 3 years prior, he had fallen on hard financial times, eventually taking up residence in his neighbor's detached garage. 3 hours into the investigation, the homeowner arrived at headquarters to be interviewed by Detective Kennedy and Detective Ward. The homeowner explained that Steve had lived in his rear garage for approximately 3 years out of neighborly charity. Recalling the night of September 14th, the homeowner stated that neighbors had pounded on his front door at 4 in the morning to alert him that the garage was completely engulfed in flames. When Kennedy asked when he had last seen Steve alive, the homeowner claimed he had seen him around 6 in the evening on the night preceding the fire. He added a critical detail: around 4 in the afternoon that same day, 2 unidentified white males had visited Steve at the garage, and Steve had expressed that the men were unhappy with him. When Kennedy inquired why the men were upset, the homeowner claimed he did not know and admitted he had never relayed this information to fire investigators or police after the fire. He stated he had simply assumed the visitors had scared Steve and that Steve had fled town. Kennedy confronted the homeowner directly regarding his failure to report his longtime tenant missing or to mention the suspicious visitors for over 5 months. The homeowner insisted he had no personal involvement in Steve's death or the origin of the fire, lacking direct physical evidence linking the homeowner to a crime. Detectives concluded the interview, allowing him to leave, while keeping his property sealed under police guard. At first light the following morning, Dr. Angela Berg and crime scene technicians began the painstaking process of excavating the burn site. Using fine screens to sift through tons of ash and charred wood, technicians recovered a vital piece of physical evidence: a single spent 9mm shell casing, severely corroded from heat and moisture. Concurrently, Dr. Berg's detailed examination of the skull revealed a distinct, circular entrance gunshot wound located at the base of the cranium. The discovery transformed the investigation from a suspicious death into an unequivocal homicide inquiry. Steve Wilkins had been shot in the head before the structure was set on fire. While the scene was being processed, Patrol Officer Darren Shipley brought a female informant from Tulsa's West Side to the Homicide Division. The informant claimed to possess direct, first-hand street intelligence regarding the murder of Steve Wilkins. During her interview with Detective Kennedy, the informant revealed that in the days leading up to the fire, a malicious rumor had circulated throughout the local community. The rumor claimed that Steve Wilkins had allegedly drugged a local young woman. The young woman's boyfriend, a well-known West Side figure named Tad Kleiner, known on the streets by the moniker Taboo, became furious upon hearing the allegation. The informant stated that on the night of the fire, Tad Kleiner, accompanied by an associate named Mikey Brummett Jr., and a third unidentified male, went to Steve's garage apartment to confront and assault him. The informant recounted that Tad had personally bragged to her and her boyfriend immediately after the event, boasting that they had severely beaten and curb-stomped Steve inside the structure. Furthermore, the informant revealed that Michael Brummett Jr. had been brought along specifically to handle the cleanup of the crime scene. She stated that Brummett used bleach to scrub blood evidence before setting the garage on fire to destroy all physical trace of the murder. The informant added that the group falsely claimed to others that they had purchased Steve a bus ticket to force him out of town. Detective Kennedy queried department records on the named suspects. 36-year-old Tad Taboo Kleiner had an extensive local criminal history involving drug offenses, illegal firearm possession, and resisting arrest. 39-year-old Michael Brummett Jr. possessed a similar record of burglary and weapons violations. Notably, records showed that 4 months after the fire, Brummett had been arrested by Tulsa patrol officers while in possession of a 9mm handgun and a .38 caliber revolver, and was currently serving a 5-year sentence in the State Department of Corrections. To corroborate the informant's account, detectives located her boyfriend, who was currently held in the county jail on unrelated charges. Brought to the homicide office, the boyfriend confirmed the informant's statement, verifying that Tad Kleiner had openly bragged about assaulting Steve Wilkins. Additionally, the boyfriend identified the third accomplice present at the murder scene as 26-year-old Devin Scrivener, a resident of Sperry, Oklahoma. The boyfriend noted that following the assault on Steve, Devin had sustained a deep laceration to his hand that bled profusely. With the informant accounts aligning, detectives received official confirmation from the state medical examiner's office. Dr. Berg had successfully matched medical radiology records obtained from a regional hospital to the skeletal remains. The body was definitively identified as Steve Wilkins. Detective Kennedy and Detective Ward immediately launched a search for 26-year-old Devin Scrivener, viewing him as the potential weak link. Among the co-conspirators, detectives canvassed known addresses across the West Side, speaking with relatives and acquaintances while looking for a light-colored Escalade associated with Devin's girlfriend. After 2 days of continuous surveillance and field sweeps, detectives located Devin at his girlfriend's residence and took him into custody for questioning. In the interview room, Detective Kennedy presented Devin with the facts of the investigation, informing him that Steve Wilkins' body had been exhumed and that multiple sources had detailed the events of that night. Realizing the severity of his situation, Devin broke down and provided a detailed confession. Devin explained that on the night of the murder, Tad Kleiner had recruited him and Mikey Brummett, stating they were going to confront an older man who was allegedly enticing and drugging neighborhood women. Devin claimed that upon entering the garage apartment, Tad immediately confronted Steve, shouting accusations before striking Steve across the face. Tad and Mikey then launched a vicious physical assault, beating Steve until he collapsed onto the floor. Devin admitted that during the struggle, as Steve tried to defend himself or escape from his chair, Devin drew a knife and stabbed Steve twice, accidentally, slicing his own hand deeply in the process. Devin claimed he became terrified by the level of violence and attempted to step back. He stated that as Tad walked toward the exit, Mikey Brummett produced a handgun and fired a single shot into the back of Steve's head. Hearing the gunshot, Devin fled the structure into the night. Following Devin's full confession, Detective Kennedy secured formal arrest warrants for first-degree murder for all three perpetrators. 2 days later, the police department's fugitive warrants unit located 36-year-old Tad Taboo Kleiner at an address on East 8th Street, taking him into custody. In the interview room, Kennedy confronted Kleiner with the evidence and Devin's statement. Kleiner blustered and adamantly denied committing murder, though he inadvertently admitted under questioning that he had previously gone to Steve's garage to threaten him, boasting that he had warned Steve he would beat him out of town if he ever touched local women. Kleiner was formally booked into the Tulsa County Jail on charges of first-degree murder. Simultaneously, detectives initiated legal proceedings to transfer Mikey Brummett Jr. from the State Department of Corrections to face formal first-degree murder charges for his role as the primary shooter and arsonist. Ballistics specialists prepared the 9mm handgun seized during Brummett's previous arrest for direct comparison against a spent casing, recovered from the ash pile. To complete the investigation, Detective Kennedy tracked down Tad Kleiner's ex-girlfriend, the young woman whose supposed mistreatment had served as the entire catalyst for the brutal attack. Brought to headquarters, the young woman was shown a photograph of Steve Wilkins. She examined the image with complete blankness, stating definitively that she had never seen or met Steve Wilkins in her life. She confirmed to Kennedy that she had never been drugged, harassed, or sexually assaulted by Wilkins or anyone matching his description. She explained that false rumors frequently circulated through the West Side drug subculture, and that the story connecting her to Steve was entirely fabricated. The revelation provided a tragic clarity to the investigation. Steve Wilkins, a gentle baker, poet, and community volunteer, had been brutally assaulted, executed, and burned in a senseless act of vigilante violence triggered by completely baseless neighborhood gossip. Through meticulous forensic excavation, persistent witness cultivation, and rigorous interrogation, the detectives of the Tulsa Police Department restored truth to Steve Wilkins' memory, ensuring that those responsible for his murder were brought to justice. Book 3: The Midnight Ride on Rolling Fork. In the quiet, early morning hours in North Charleston, South Carolina, a series of frantic phone calls disrupted the local 911 emergency communications center. Residents living at an apartment complex on Rolling Fork Road reported that an unknown male was aggressively banging on exterior doors and windows, screaming frantically for medical assistance. The first patrol officer arrived on scene within minutes, navigating past the dark apartment buildings toward the rear complex near the public swimming pool. Beneath an exterior stairwell on the first floor, the officer discovered a young man collapsed in a dense pool of blood. The victim had sustained a severe gunshot wound to the upper inner thigh, and his pulse was rapidly fading. Emergency medical personnel arrived shortly thereafter, but despite resuscitation efforts, the young man succumbed to his injuries at the scene. Led Detective Reams and Detective Sanders of the North Charleston Police Department arrived to assume command of the homicide investigation. A primary assessment of the scene revealed that the victim was carrying no identification documents. He possessed several distinctive tattoos, which crime scene technicians photographed for identification processing through fingerprint databases. Examining the physical evidence, detectives observed a single gunshot entry wound on the inner left thigh. The bullet appeared to have severed the femoral artery, causing rapid, catastrophic blood loss. A continuous blood trail extended from the stairwell back across the parking lot, leading past a row of large trash dumpsters to a metal guardrail near the complex entrance. Beside the dumpsters, investigators recovered a single 9mm handgun magazine containing live rounds. However, no firearm was located anywhere in the vicinity. Residents interviewed along Rolling Fork Road unanimously reported that they had heard no gunshots prior to the victim's frantic knocking. Detective Reams deduced that the shooting had likely occurred inside an enclosed space, such as the cabin of a motor vehicle parked briefly near the dumpsters, which would have muffled the sound of the discharge. Near the start of the blood trail, officers recovered a locked cellular phone covered in blood, which was immediately secured for digital extraction. Detectives contacted nearby residents equipped with doorbell cameras. 1 resident provided video footage capturing the victim stumbling toward her door. At 1:16 in the morning, clutching his leg, with no pursuers visible behind him. Seeking broader coverage, detectives located a city-managed Verkada security camera mounted on a utility pole monitoring the sole access road entering and exiting the apartment complex. Reviewing the pole camera footage from the minutes immediately preceding the 911 call, Detective Reams observed a light-colored, possibly white or silver, Infiniti sedan exiting the complex at high speed at 1:11 in the morning, turning eastbound onto Rivers Avenue. While detectives were reviewing the footage, the county coroner's office successfully identified the victim through fingerprint records as 21-year-old Aurelius Siren Nelson Jr., known to his friends as Cy.
A.
Native of James Island, South Carolina, Cy was the father of a young son. Detectives located Cy's girlfriend at a nearby Stay Express hotel where the couple had been staying. She explained that Cy had woken up around 1 o'clock that morning, dressed silently, and walked out of the hotel room without stating his destination. 12 hours into the investigation, patrol officers initiated a traffic stop on a Toyota RAV for traveling near the crime scene after noticing a passenger attempting to conceal his face with a jacket as the patrol cruiser activated its emergency lights. 2 male occupants abruptly bolted from the vehicle on foot, escaping into a residential neighborhood. The remaining passenger in the vehicle was brought to police headquarters for questioning. He explained to Detective Sanders that he had been kidnapped and assaulted by the 2 men who fled. He identified those men as close friends of the deceased victim, Cy. The passenger revealed that on the night of the shooting, Cy had visited his apartment near Rolling Fork Road and explicitly stated that he was planning to commit an armed robbery against a local drug dealer. The passenger stated that after Cy failed to return, Cy's friends suspected that he had set Cy up to be ambushed. The friends had forced him into the vehicle at gunpoint, demanding he call the intended robbery victim. When the passenger placed the call on speakerphone, the individual on the line abruptly hung up. The passenger provided detectives with the moniker of the intended robbery target. Detective Holly queried law enforcement databases and discovered that the individual owned a registered white 2010 Infiniti G37 sedan, matching the exact vehicle captured fleeing the crime scene on the city.
Por la cámara.
Detectives obtained the address of the vehicle owner's girlfriend from a local bail bonds agency that had previously bonded him out on unrelated charges. Detective Sanders traveled to the residence and made contact with the girlfriend, who agreed to accompany detectives to City Hall for a voluntary interview. During questioning, the girlfriend confirmed that her child's father drove a white Infiniti sedan and communicated with her daily. She stated he had visited her apartment during the early morning hours of the shooting, acting noticeably quiet before departing. With the girlfriend's assistance, Detective Sanders placed a phone call directly to the driver of the Infiniti, asking him to come to City Hall to clarify some details regarding an ongoing investigation. The driver agreed to arrive within the hour. However, 20 minutes later, an automated license plate reader camera alerted patrol units to the white Infiniti traveling along a nearby arterial road. Patrol officers executed a high-risk felony traffic stop, detaining the driver at gunpoint and impounding the vehicle to the department's secure forensic warehouse. The driver was brought to an interview room at City Hall. Visibly frustrated by the felony stop, he asserted his right to legal counsel, halting immediate questioning. Detectives executed a search warrant on the impounded white Infiniti.
Crime.
Scene investigation technicians examined the exterior, noting a bullet entry hole on the interior panel of the driver's side door. Technicians then applied Blue Star chemical reagent to the interior cabin. The chemical reacted instantly, luminescing brightly across the front passenger seat, though the leather surface had been thoroughly scrubbed with cleaning agents. The blood had soaked deep into the internal foam cushion. Technicians cut away sections of the seat cushion to preserve the biological evidence for DNA matching against the victim, Aurelius Nelson. The physical evidence presented a complete picture. Sai's blood was embedded deep. In the suspect's passenger seat, a bullet hole pierced the driver door and cell. Phone records confirmed extensive text messaging between Sai and the driver, immediately preceding the rendezvous. Faced with the overwhelming physical evidence, the driver requested to waive his right to counsel and provide his account of the event to Detective Sanders. Re-interviewed on camera, the driver explained that Sai had contacted him, requesting to purchase narcotics. Sai entered the front passenger seat of the Infiniti near the Rolling Fork apartment complex. As the driver began operating the vehicle, Sai suddenly produced a 9mm handgun, racking the slide, and announcing an armed robbery. The driver stated that he panicked and immediately grabbed Sai's wrist, engaging in a desperate physical struggle for control of the weapon while the vehicle was still moving. During the struggle over the firearm, the gun discharged twice. Inside the confined front cabin, one round struck the interior driver door panel, while the second round struck Sai directly in the inner left thigh, severing his femoral artery. The driver recalled that Sai immediately screamed, stating he had accidentally shot himself. As the driver brought the vehicle to a halt near the dumpsters, Sai managed to break free, opening the passenger door and fleeing on foot toward the apartment stairwells, dropping his magazine in the process. The driver, terrified and in shock, threw the fallen firearm out of the window as he sped away from the complex, subsequently attempting to clean the blood from his passenger seat out of sheer panic. Detective Sanders evaluated the driver's confession against the physical evidence, the trajectory of the bullet hole in the driver door, the localized blood saturation in the passenger seat cushion, the recovery of the dropped magazine, the doorbell video showing Sai running alone, and the informant's statement confirming Sai's intent to commit a robbery all corroborated the driver's account of self-defense. Recognizing that the driver had acted lawfully to defend his own life during an armed robbery, detectives declined to file murder charges against him. However, because the driver had intentionally destroyed crime scene evidence by scrubbing the vehicle seat and disposing of the firearm without notifying law enforcement, he was formally charged with misprision of a felony. Within 44 hours of the initial emergency call, Detective Sanders closed the homicide investigation. The exhaustive inquiry demonstrated that Aurelius Siren Nelson Jr. had tragically lost his life as a direct consequence of his own decision to execute an armed robbery, while diligent forensic work ensured that the truth of the struggle inside the white Infiniti was fully brought to light. Part 1. The Shadows of Northlake. The darkness that settles over the quiet suburban pockets of Gwinnett County, Georgia, often masks the fragile boundary between adolescent illusion and absolute reality. On a cool night in Cartersville, near the peaceful waters and wooded clearings of North Lake, that boundary vanished entirely in a burst of violent impulse. Inside a parked sedan, a young woman named Kayla lay back against the seat. Cushions, caught in the twilight of sleep. She had been riding along with two teenagers who were practically her entire world, 19-year-old Aiden Reynolds and his 17-year-old best friend, John Pendrick. Outside the vehicle, the air was still, broken only by the rhythmic hum of night insects and the rustle of leaves near a roadside picnic bench built in memory of a neighborhood mother. Aiden, an aspiring musician who delivered packages by day to support his dreams, had recently ventured into the volatile world of small-time illicit sales. John, a free-spirited young man born 260 miles away in Fullerika who worked as an oil technician and loved nothing more than skateboarding, motorcycling, and camping, was right by his side. They were inseparable, bound by the boundless confidence and tragic naivety of youth. Kayla had dozed off, lulled by the quiet expectation of a quick transaction arranged through social media. Someone using an Instagram profile under the handle popshots_EJ had agreed to purchase 56 grams of marijuana for $400. The spot chosen for the meeting was a secluded picnic area surrounded by dense trees, a location familiar to local kids but largely unknown to outsiders. Suddenly, the stillness was shattered. Sharp, deafening cracks echoed through the timberline. Kayla jolted awake, her heart hammering against her ribs. Through the gloom, she caught only fleeting glimpses, figures moving rapidly in all-black attire, turning and sprinting toward the tree line that bordered the park. Desperate and terrified, she called 911. Her voice quavered as she tried to explain the nightmare unfolding before her eyes. When the first patrol unit arrived, an officer signaled over the radio. 243 on 10-7. In the clinical language of law enforcement. Dispatch. The scene was immediately recognized as grave. Two young black males lay motionless near the wooden picnic bench. A canine unit was dispatched, the handler bringing a trained tracking dog to the ground. The dog picked up a strong, distinct scent trail leading out of the park, up a winding foot trail, and directly toward the backyard of a residential house roughly a quarter-mile away on Norris Lane. Squad 30 reported to Unit 210 that the tracking dog raised an alert at the back gate of the property. Beyond that point, the scent evaporated into the crisp night air. The officers established a perimeter and called 1021 for homicide. Detectives. In the somber arithmetic of violent crime investigation, the first 48 hours represent a critical threshold. If investigators cannot secure a meaningful lead within those crucial initial 2 days, their chances of solving a murder are cut in half. Lead Detective Pearson arrived at the crime scene alongside Detective O'Reina. They stepped under the yellow police tape into the perimeter lights. beside the wooden table, the stark reality of the tragedy lay exposed. 19-year-old Aiden Reynolds was dead, having suffered 5 gunshot wounds, including fatal strikes to his chest and back. His best friend, 17-year-old John Pendrick, lay nearby, struck 4 times across his arm, torso, and back. The positioning of their bodies suggested they had been taken entirely by surprise, cut down before they could react or flee. Crime scene investigation specialists carefully cataloged the physical evidence. Scattered across the ground, 13 9mm shell casings were found, tightly grouped near the table, suggesting a single shooter who had emptied a single magazine with cold, deliberate speed. Near the victims lay their shattered mobile phones. Recognizing the paramount importance of digital evidence, detectives placed both devices into airplane mode to prevent remote wiping or deletion of cloud data. Tucked inside John's waistband, investigators made a poignant discovery: a toy, a plastic BB gun fashioned to resemble a real firearm. It was a tragic artifact of modern teenage bravado, completely useless against real violence. Detective Pearson moved to the rear of a patrol vehicle where Kayla waited in shock. Pearson spoke to her with gentle empathy, recognizing the emotional trauma she was enduring while remaining focused on gathering vital details. Kayla explained that Aiden had arranged the meetup through Instagram with an anonymous individual asking for $400 worth of product. She described seeing 2 figures dressed in black fleeing into the woods after the gunfire awoke her. When Pearson probed gently about whether there was anything else she knew, Kayla seemed hesitant. Pearson noted her subtle body language, sensing that fear or confusion might be withholding crucial context. Meanwhile, patrol officers investigated the residence on Norris Lane where the tracking dog had alerted. The property featured an open gate, but as officers knocked on the front door, the interior lights were abruptly switched off. Repeated attempts to gain a response yielded silence. Pearson recognized that, without specific probable cause, he could not force entry into the house, but it immediately became a primary location of interest. Additionally, officers discovered a nearby homeowner with a security camera pointed toward the park. Though the local network connection was down, preventing immediate remote access, the hard drive had captured footage that could prove pivotal once extracted. Back at police headquarters, forensic technicians worked to bypass the security locks on the victim's mobile devices, while John's device allowed partial data recovery despite a damaged charging port. Aiden's phone resisted initial access attempts, requiring hardware repair before any logs could be extracted. However, text logs retrieved from John's device revealed a chilling message sent by Aiden. Around 11:30 that evening, roughly 1 hour before the shooting, Aiden had mused about the possibility of robbing the buyer instead of completing the sale. This revelation offered a critical shift in perspective for Detective Pearson. If Aiden had contemplated taking the buyer's money, the meetup might have spiraled into an ambush driven by preemptive aggression or mutual deception. Kayla had omitted this potential detail. Pearson brought Kayla in for a second, more structured interview at headquarters. Pearson sat across from her, maintaining a calm, reassuring posture. He reminded her that she was his key witness and urged her to lay out everything without fear. Kayla admitted that Aiden had mentioned having a play for them that night. Furthermore, under soft questioning, she revealed that Aiden had been involved in a dispute 2 months earlier where he had allegedly taken $90 from a local young woman without delivering the agreed goods. Kayla provided a nickname, suggesting the shooting might have been an act of retaliation stemming from that previous dispute. Pearson traveled back to the neighborhood around Norris Lane to follow up on the tip. He approached the residence where the young woman lived. She spoke openly, with Pearson and Investigator Stevens on her front porch, adamantly denying any involvement or lingering grudge over $90. She expressed genuine sorrow over Aiden's death and insisted she wanted whoever committed the murder off the streets of their community. The preliminary lead regarding simple local retaliation evaporated, leaving Pearson reliant on digital evidence. 4 days after the murder, technical staff successfully retrieved the home's security camera footage from the property near the park lot. Pearson sat in a dimly lit office room, watching the time-stamped video play across his monitor. At 12:04 in the morning, Aiden's car pulled into the lot. At 12:13, the vehicle headlights flashed intermittently, indicating communication with someone nearby. At 12:25 in the morning, Aiden and John stepped out of the vehicle. John carried a dark backpack. Moments later, a faint silhouette moved through the gloom near the picnic shelter. It was the last video recorded of the 2 boys alive. The backpack John wore was missing when officers found his body. 13 days into the investigation, technical support finally breached the inner storage of Aiden's damaged cellular device. Pearson carefully parsed the recovered Instagram message threads. The conversation was clear. Aiden had been messaging an account named popshots_EJ. The user had agreed to buy 56 grams of marijuana for $400, setting the meeting location at sunset. At 12:05 in the morning, Aiden messaged that he was at the park. At 12:25 in the morning, popshots_EJ replied with the word, here. The timestamps on the digital messages matched the motion-activated security video precisely. Pearson printed the profile picture associated with popshots_EJ. The account itself had been deleted shortly after the incident, a hallmark of calculated concealment. Realizing the suspect likely belonged to the same local peer network as other area youth, Pearson returned to the neighborhood and showed the profile photograph to the young woman he had spoken with earlier. Her eyes widened slightly upon seeing the image. She recognized the face as a youth, known locally as EJ, though she did not know his full legal name. She recalled that EJ had recently interacted with a friend of hers who lived nearby. Pearson and Investigator Stevens visited the friend's residence down the street. The young girl, visibly anxious, admitted that she knew EJ and had even styled his hair a week prior at a yellow house with a prominent fence on Norris Lane. Pearson's mind immediately connected the pieces. The house she described was the exact property where the canine tracking dog had lost the scent trail on the night of the crime. With this vital link established, Pearson contacted the school resource officer at a local alternative educational facility serving area youth. Pearson shared the Instagram handle and the nickname EJ. Within hours, the resource officer cross-referenced student records and staff knowledge, identifying the 16-year-old student as Laquan Dempsey. While the digital trail pointed heavily toward Laquan, Pearson needed solid corroboration before securing an arrest warrant for felony murder. He obtained a court order for cell tower location data associated with Laquan's registered phone number and initiated a knock-and-talk visit at the yellow house on Norris Lane. When Pearson arrived at the Norris Lane residence, an adult resident answered the door. Pearson asked directly if Laquan was present. The woman confirmed that Laquan was a close friend of her brother, though he was not currently inside. Pearson stepped into the shade of the driveway with her to converse. As Pearson explained the gravity of the ongoing double homicide investigation, the woman made a revealing statement. Back in late June, Laquan had allegedly been robbed of money by a buyer during a previous deal, an experience that had left him bitter and harboring a desire for retribution. 2 days later, Laquan's grandmother accompanied the 16-year-old to police headquarters for a voluntary interview. Laquan sat in the interrogation room, trying to project composure. Pearson laid out the established facts calmly, explaining that forensic analysis of Aiden's phone revealed direct Instagram communications with popshots_EJ leading up to the exact minute of the shooting. Faced with this evidence, Laquan offered a defensive explanation. He claimed that he frequently shared his phone and Instagram account with a friend who lived at the house on Norris Lane. He insisted that 2 days before the shooting, this friend had taken his phone and kept it. Laquan alleged that his friend was involved in local gang activity and was trying to force him into gang participation through intimidation. He asserted that the friend had taken his phone to arrange the meeting at the park and that he himself had only learned about the shooting after the fact, when the friend described confronting the victims, firing shots, and stealing the backpack. Pearson listened attentively, analyzing Laquan's demeanor. The story of a stolen phone was a common defense, but Pearson knew that physical data would reveal the ultimate truth. After the interview concluded, Pearson reviewed the detailed call records and cell tower location data for Laquan's phone. The location records provided definitive evidence. On the day before the shooting, the night of the murder, and the morning immediately following, Laquan's phone repeatedly connected to cell towers serving the immediate Northlake Park vicinity. Crucially, the records showed that at 11:30 in the morning, 11 hours after the murders, Laquan's phone made an outgoing call to his own grandmother's personal phone number. The argument that an Intimidating gang acquaintance had possessed Laquan's phone for days collapsed. The teenager had been using his own phone to call his grandmother from the immediate vicinity of the crime scene. When Pearson contacted Laquan's grandmother to discuss these contradictions, she informed him that the family had retained legal counsel for her grandson. Recognizing that further voluntary questioning was concluded, Pearson compiled the comprehensive probable cause affidavit detailing the digital messages, video synchronization, canine track, physical witness testimony, and cell tower location logs. 5 days later, law enforcement officers executed arrest warrants, taking 16-year-old Laquan Dempsey into custody at his family home without incident. He was formally charged in connection with the deaths of Aiden Reynolds and John Pendrick. 3 years passed. The weight of loss lingered heavily over the families whose lives were permanently reshaped on that autumn night. On an afternoon filled with gentle sunlight, the mothers of Aiden and John met to remember their sons. They wore matching memorial shirts bearing the faces of the two boys whose friendship had been absolute. Sitting together, they shared memories of the boys' energetic spirit, their humorous teenage ambitions, and the tragic absurdity of lives cut short over small disputes and petty sums. They spoke of finding solace in tiny daily signs, in quiet dreams, and in the enduring strength of mutual support. Bound forever by a shared tragedy, they stood as living testaments to the human cost of youth. Violence, finding purpose in honoring the memory of their sons with quiet, dignified resilience. Part 2. The Ashes of Truth in Tulsa. On the west side of Tulsa, Oklahoma, the passage of time often blends the mundane with the forgotten. In a modest neighborhood near South 54th West Avenue, an empty residential lot stood quiet, dominated by the scorched, blackened frame of a detached garage that had burned to the ground 5 months prior in mid-September. The fire department had responded back then, dousing the blaze and leaving behind a choked expanse of charred wood, melted plastic, and heavy ash. No victims were noted at the time, as the interior had been piled high with discarded household debris. In late winter, a neighborhood woman was out searching for her missing cat. Believing the animal might have wandered into the overgrown backyard of the burned property, she received permission from the property homeowner to look around. As she moved among the burnt timbers of the collapsed garage structure, her eyes caught something pale resting beneath a pile of heavy debris. She bent closer, then recoiled in horror. Protruding from the ash were human bones, including a distinct jawbone and skull fragments showing severe structural fractures. She dialed 911 immediately. Patrol officers responded swiftly, securing the perimeter with yellow tape and notifying the homicide division. Detectives Mark Kennedy and Ward arrived at the scene alongside crime scene Detective Ross Hall. The air was thick with the damp smell of old charcoal and wet earth. Joining them was Dr. Angela Berg, a distinguished forensic anthropologist called to evaluate the human remains embedded in the ruins. Dr. Berg knelt carefully beside the structural foundation, carefully clearing away charred detritus. She noted that the skeletal remains were tucked deeply under a collapsed beam, positioned in a manner that suggested the body was present when the intense thermal event occurred. Upon initial examination of the cranial fragments, Dr. Berg observed sharp, localized fractures distinct from heat-induced thermal cracking. She pointed out an apparent high-velocity impact injury at the base of the skull, strongly indicative of blunt force trauma or a gunshot entrance wound. While Dr. Berg prepared for a full, systematic excavation scheduled for daylight, detectives sought to identify the owner of the property.
Public
Records listed the homeowner, a local resident known to keep to himself. Patrol officers contacted the homeowner by phone, asking if he could return to the scene to assist officers. The homeowner gave evasive answers, claiming he was currently out of town and out of state, despite neighbors reporting having seen him drive away from the house only moments after granting the cat owner permission to enter his yard. Detective Kennedy approached the neighbor who had discovered the remains.
She
confirmed that the homeowner had been present just an hour earlier, leaving hastily in his vehicle as soon as she went into the backyard. She described him as a recluse who rarely interacted with the neighborhood, adding that the area was generally quiet and devoid of commotion. Returned to the homicide office, Detective Kennedy dialed the homeowner's cellular phone. Kennedy maintained a neutral